All right, what's up? Hello. Um, so basically, I'm gonna make a what's wrong with Awake Maegu video sort of thing here. The most recent update on labs was not good for Maegus. There's some good stuff in there that's good for sure, and I'll go over that probably first, and talk about it as if that's the version that we currently have with some assumptions. But okay, so basically they gave us BSR skills and they did some changes. I'm going to talk about the BSR skills here real quick. Uh, this skill in particular, this is the ADR and B skill. As you can see, it's got 4 more hits. Um, Usually a 10% skill has like 2 more hits. The reason it has 4 is because on live game currently, if you have the Spirit Forged version, you're getting 2 more attacks onto it anyway. So technically, you could argue that it is 2 more hits. Um, you just don't have to get the Spirit Forged version for it. Uh, that alone, not the biggest of deals. It's like a lot more damage, right, from the normal version, not the Spirit Forged version. And I don't see a Spirit Forged description here, but I can't really read Korean, so I don't really know what this says. Um, but if it would have multiple sentences if it was the same. So I would assume that this probably puts you in the Spirit Forged state rather than gets buffed by being in the Spirit Force state. And I'm going to go ahead and scroll down here to the changes to the base skill here. It's changed that the float effect is applied to the first hit when using the skill. I very much dislike that, but I'll go over that later. An air attack effect has been added. That's actually huge. I'll talk about that here in just a sec. After using the ghost walk left or right, it has been improved to smoothly connect. Now, if I come here and I do that, that already feels fairly smooth, so I'm not really sure what they mean by that. You know? Maybe it'll get a little bit faster, which is fine. You do kind of have to wait for the full animation of like the chain step movement. Maybe you can cancel it mid movement. That would be very nice. Um, but yeah, now let's talk about this air attack. Because with this BSR version, you have 15,858 times 9 in total, which now is going to have air attack. So you get your crit buff. It looks like it's got 30% crit rate right there. So you get your crit buff and a tier 2 add-on, which you should have, right? That's an extra 50% crit rate plus your level 5 crit rate from gear. It's 98%. So this is essentially going to be like a Shadow Stomp on steroids. Um, think of Shadow Stomp, but like with full crit rate. But actually probably more damage because the PvP reduction is only 35% and Shadow Stomp's like 52%. So this BSR is going to hit very hard, um, which is good. I do think, having played it a lot now, I do think it's lacking damage in some degree. But yeah, that's kind of a big deal. Now, this float effect applied to the first hit, when you think about it, you know, using it as like a re-CC damage dealing option, it's pretty good, right? Because if you have float on the last hit, you're not going to get any of the air attack damage. Um, However, I I mean, we already struggled to CC anyway. This was one of the better options because you could slide through the enemy and hit him in the back with the float because it floated on the last hit and allowed you to CC people. And I don't think the class is struggling in damage that much in like 1v1s. And it certainly isn't going to fix its issues in like AOS. Um, but yeah, it makes it harder to CC people essentially. Now maybe if you can cancel the movement with the skill, you'll be able to do some like Sork mumbo jumbo iframe to the right and cancel it with this skill. Maybe it'll be better than what I think, but I doubt it. Um, and then we got some very small damage buffs to Q and SL and B. Um, Basically these 2 skills, which is fine, I guess. It's not going to change anything outside of 1v1 combos and not all that much. The buff through the air attack is going to be 10% as opposed to 5%. which is a fairly big deal. You'll probably want to try to maintain that buff a lot, since you get, a lot of air attack. Uh, and then this has been improved so that the arrow rotates according to the camera rotation while using the fox run skill. I'm making the assumption that this is your forward F and it's going to follow your camera more, which is one of the bigger changes I was asking for. Because it's very I'll be honest here. It's impossible to actually chase somebody with this skill if they start like moving around a lot, like in different directions. It just does not turn very well on the second hit in particular. Once you go into that attack animation, it stops turning altogether. Um, I also wish there was a little bit of leeway in between using the first movement into the second one. You have to basically hold down the keys or press it and then press it before you kind of go into that ending animation of the first hit. So if I do this right here, you see that super armor pop up, and then you go back into iframe. That's about the limit of when you can press the keys again. I almost wish you could just go into the super armor of the first hit and then do it again. Kind of like, extend the movement or the linger, I guess. But yeah. So now let's talk about where the class is struggling right now, because in my opinion, it's pretty much struggling everywhere. Let's go over damage first. The damage on the skills is definitely not bad, but it's lacking in accuracy, and like badly. So the highest skill we have right here, 20%. The second highest, 15%, and the third highest is going to be 11%. Somewhere. I know, there we are, 11%. And then everything else is 10 or below. Literally everything. 10 to like 4%. So it's pretty bad. We have no accuracy buff, no evasion debuff outside of whatever add-ons you are running. This means anyone with the slightest amount of evasion, you are going to miss them a lot. I tell you, Drac having one of the higher accuracy modifiers in the game with their whole kit, their buffs and debuffs, I can kill very, very high DP evasion targets compared to my AP. And those same targets, I literally can't even do like 25% of their health on this class. So for a class that's supposed to be all about like, combos, it seems, it very much struggles the moment you run into anybody that's playing evasion. And when you look at any other class that's designed to build evasion, like this is, right? You get your evasion buff just by dashing around. It's basically up all the time. They have some sort of built-in accuracy buff, right? It took a while for ninjas to get theirs in the form of prime hard aiming. Kuno has some decent accuracy mods in Succession, and Awakening is it's okay for evasion, but other classes, and Hash just got an accuracy buff, right? So if all these other classes are going to have high mods or high mods with an accuracy buff or evasion down or both, right? This class should have it. We simply don't have the accuracy modifiers at all to keep up with any sort of evasion. It's really, really bad. Now let's go over how the class feels. Right now it feels very clunky and awkward. And by that I mean like the way you move around. I kind of wish your forward movement was a little bit faster and maybe moved further. This just doesn't feel all that good or useful, especially when you're trying to chase down opponents, and even when you weave in your other movement skills, it's very much lacking in mobility. Now, you can cover a lot of distance with your forward F, but like I said, okay, well, that was a fucking awful demonstration. Like I said, you can move with forward F quite far, but the moment they turn to the side is you lose them. So if they're just running in a circle, you're not going to catch them. And these wind up, like this wind up here, she does this little animation and then moves. Fuck off. That makes it so it's very difficult. So how I was, how I was talking about canceling the movement into AD and RB to try to get that float. It's not like a sort where it just immediately moves, right? There's this whole big ass wind up. before she actually moves, which makes, trying to outplay somebody very, very difficult or impossible in some scenarios just because of how slow it is, right? You see ghost steps or whatever the Sork iframe is called is very, very quick, and allows them to go into another skill to attempt a CC from behind, right? This class just can't do that all that well at all, really. The only option it has currently on live is going through the target and CCing him in the back with that float, but again, they're changing that. It's going to CC on the first hit now. So you'd probably want to do something like that. This is live servers, not labs, just to be clear. But so we can't move around. I'm sorry, that's not what I mean. We can move around a lot, but it's not fast, and it certainly struggles to keep up with most other rats, and even non-rats like Zerker or Drak. I don't really consider those rat classes. I haven't really fought a caster, but I would imagine it's very miserable. Slows really, really suck, and her iframes are not strong enough to the point where you can like avoid certain skills. I was fighting a Zerker earlier, and I'd literally just get peppered from a distance over and over again. Literally impossible to keep up with the class. It was miserable. The only like opportunities I had was using F to float him if he was like spamming his dash. But even then, because his dash, like the side dash they do, is so fast, a lot of times I'll just F to where he was, and he's already moving off, and he just doesn't get floated because it's so fast. And that's no offense to that guy, but obviously there are way better ways to move when fighting a class that can't chase you all that much. You don't need to spam that skill. You can just lava piercer or whatever the hell it is where they shoot the can in the ground and fly backwards. Like they have so many options. So it struggles a lot in terms of its movement. I'm not saying necessarily they need to be like super fast or anything, but I do think some improved flows between the skills. Like this thing is fucking awful. Literally one of the worst movement skills in the game. Uh, there's no reason for it to be this slow. It's supposed to have like an oh no, it doesn't even have the activation speed increase. They should make the Spirit Forge version, right, have an activation speed increase, kind of like how twirling does. Oh no, twirling doesn't have. Okay, what's am I thinking of? Shift F. Okay, so if I do like, it's a little bit faster. Honestly, still not that fast, and I think that skill should be faster anyway. Like, see, that's the base version. It's barely slower. But I'll get into that stuff later. So her movement needs to be improved on some of these other skills. She has a lot of skills in here dedicated to movement, and they're all just kind of okay. So none of them are really that good, except F. F is fucking phenomenal. I love it. It's incredible. Like, actually just insanely good. Port R&B, I find that even a lot of the times because it's just like ping and desync, that even when I have that reticle in like a fighting an actual player scenario, I don't get that kind of teleport. And because they took away the like instant cancel with Fletch, there's not much I can do off of this. Like this skill's almost nearly pointless. It's just like to replace chain step because chain step doesn't move all that much, or it's slow, or it's on cooldown, whatever the situation might be. Because the targeting on this skill is a little funky and doesn't work all that well. That could just be a skill issue. I need to get better at aiming. Like, but even when you land it, there's just not much you can do off of the skill. Like your best chance is that. But again, we don't have that float on the last hit anymore. It's going to be float on the first hit, so you'd have to do something like that, which isn't terrible, but not the best either, especially when you only have 2 CC options, and we'll get into that right now. F is obviously a protected CC. One of the only Awakened kits in the game to have a protected CC, and it's very, very good. No, it does not float behind. A lot of people still seem to think that it does. It applies a float to the front, but teleports the character behind. So think of it kind of like a ninja's boss ladder, where they teleport to the front and apply a float. It's the same thing, just the character goes behind. So if you're holding S block and a Maegu does that to you, you're gonna not get CC'd. Um, yeah. So that's one protected CC. That is the only one we have in the entire kit, and I don't just mean the Awaken kit. I mean the Awaken kit, the pre-Awaken kit. That's it. Now, the second one we have would be the Bond skill. Um, all of these are kind of just not good enough. So we run with twirling. Basically, just put the float on twirling, watch him do a forward guard, and try and get it behind him. Um, in theory, this is really good, but in practice, it's not all that good just because it's not a super fast skill. And floating on the last hit, while it is, again, good in theory to get behind somebody, it's very, what's the word I'm looking for? Telegraphed? Very easy to avoid for the enemy. You duel somebody a few times, they pick up on it. They might ask, hey, does that go through forward guard? You say, yeah, the skill moves through you. It applies the float on the last hit. And then they're like, they just never get CC by it anymore because they know what to look for. So it's kind of like a noob stomp gimmick, really, but not the strongest of CCs. That being said, low stamina cost, low cooldown means you get to use it a lot. So, it's still good. And it replaces your C swap if you do ADC. It uses that skill instead. So even if you don't have the bond, you have a super armor C swap with this skill, which is very, very nice. Having the option to do a super armor C swap or a forward guard C swap is actually pretty big. Doesn't last very long, the C swap at least. Very, very short. And those are basically her 2CC options. That's more or less it. You can sometimes get away with Fletch here. You know, it is a iframe into an unprotected knockback, and I have had some success with it. It's not terrible, but it's not great either. They removed kind of like the almost instantaneous cancel it used to have when the class was first out on labs. They should bring that back, honestly. They should bring that cancel back. It made the skill so much more useful. I would also argue that it could probably stand to move a little bit further. And I kind of wish you could, like, camera turn it. You can to some degree, but I feel like it needs to be, you need to move further with it to make better use of it. But yeah. So now let's get to like her kind of AOS or node ward damage. She does not have a whole lot of protected damage. You have a forward guard on this, which is not bad, but very slow. Especially that third hit comes out quite slow. This whole skill needs to be sped up quite a bit, in my opinion. For a class that's supposed to be a rat, essentially. It's a rat class without a grab, right? It's supposed to build evasion, be a rat class. You need to be able to apply these like forward guard skills in particular quickly. And this is just far, far too slow. And the damage isn't super, super cracked on it because of how slow it is. So I don't think it needs a damage buff at all. I think if it's faster, the DPS will be fine. And probably very good even. But it's too slow in my opinion. This skill, I already kind of talked about how slow it is. I think if it just came out faster, it would be fine. It's just very slow. Even when you use other skills into it, doesn't feel all that good. Now let's talk about these two. These are kind of like the biggest deal in the kit right now. Ember Claw Slash into its flow and Twirling Fox Flare into its flow. You cannot use these flows on their own or after any other skill. You can only use these skills after their preceding skills, which is fine on paper, except the preceding skills on both of them are unprotected. So if you want this protected damage, you have to do the unprotected skill first to get it. And it's not like a Suck Lawn where, you're pressing F and the first hit comes out super fast and goes into super armor. It's fairly quick. Oh, okay, that's kind of disingenuous. Let me do like a skill into it. It comes out faster than that. Um, like if I do, right, it's faster than that, but it's still unprotected. And this is the, what, fourth float? Third unprotected float in this kit. Given the bond we always run is going to be that, you could argue that you run Core Ember Crawl Crush for the Super Armor KD. Um, but I still find this, especially in Solaire, when there's a lot going on and people can't keep track of you, and this skill in particular, I find it to be the best option. But we don't need another float, right? We have Q for a quick float after like a dash. We have SLMB for the float with the buff on it, right? We have F for float, protected, good range, good damage. Like, this does not need to be another protective float or unprotected. They need to remove the float on this skill and put a forward guard on it and put down attack on it. That way, if you're using it as follow-up damage from someone who's KD'd, you're still going to get the down attack bonus. Or if you use it in a combo after a skill like Q, you can still get the air attack off of it as well. Right, so if I do like this Q, you get the air attack off of that, and you get down attack off of that, right? So it should be forward guard without a float. Um, this would also help you recover stamina a little bit better because then you can use these two a little bit more. And I'll get to the stamina here later. It's not a major issue if the changes that I'm asking for come through. And then this is in the same boat, right? If you want to use this protected damage skill, you have to use this. And this is far slower. Even if I do like the increased activation speed, honestly, I don't even know if it's there. It's how little it's activating faster. It's just, I don't know. But maybe it just means it cancels better rather than gets faster. But yeah, this should be super armor, just straight up. It already doesn't have a CC on it. It should just be protected. Right now, it's literally just unprotected damage. It is not good. And it should honestly flow after F faster. It says you can just hold F to go into this skill after Fox Flare Ambush. But you're not even going to get air attack off of it because it's so slow. um, yeah. Although maybe you don't want it because fuck air smash. But yeah, it should be super armor. That way you can, do shift F into the flow or shift L and B into flow or both if your teammate's got a KD, right? And then they can re-CC, whatever, right? But we don't have a whole lot. We have shift R and B. Again, needs to be faster. Shift Q. I kind of skipped over this, right? Shift Q, very slow. Damage is good, but for how slow it is, it's not good. That kind of first hit just needs to be removed. And I've tried doing everything I can to, make it faster, flow, but it doesn't work all that well. I think that first hit's there to like pull mobs. As you'll watch, you can see it'll hit them, even though there's nothing in here to suggest it has a first hit. It does apply a slow in a big area, right? So that guy got hit, and yeah, see, he's got the slow debuff on him. So they should just remove it. We don't need a big AoE slow. What we need is to be able to apply damage to somebody who's CC'd. And Ember Claw, I don't know why I can't say that. Ember Claw Crush is in the same boat. Only that's wrong. It does that first hit, and then it does the second hit. And you can cancel the first hit after certain skills. What it says in the description, E after certain skills to perform attack 2. So if I do like, it's not as bad. They should just remove the first hit and put all the second hit or the first hit damage into the second hit. And it should just function like that. Right? It doesn't need to be instantaneous. It's fine at that speed. I do think it could necessarily get a slight damage buff, It has an even higher reduction than this, despite having just less damage, so it's kind of weird. And it's unprotected, so it seems strange. Um, you could probably bring it down to like a, what, 67, since it's unprotected. Uh, I don't know. It doesn't, yeah, it needs buffs pretty much everywhere. Just, kind of bad. But yeah, so stamina. I believe that's the next thing to talk about. Her stamina is not bad by any means. The problem is right now, because we don't have any like protected skills we can use to linger or, to do any of that, we have to go into the pre-awaken kit to do skills like this to recover stamina. And with how, whoops, excuse me, with how gutted the absolutes are, it's just not very good to go into the pre-awaken kit anymore. Um, there's still good protections in here, don't get me wrong. Um, but we should also have, some options in the awakening kit to recover stamina with. And even then, when you're being focused pretty hard, you will get, you'll just die in your super armor, or you'll get grabbed and run out of stamina anyway because you'll run out of skills, right? Um, so having a few more options would be better. Like I said, it's not bad, but going to the pre-awakening to recover stamina being the only option feels bad and very unfun, personally. Um, so that's pretty much it. Hold up, I had a notepad of all the changes. It's kind of a little bit outdated. Um, the more I play the class, the more like I realize it needs some pretty uh, substantial changes. But yeah, right there. These are the things that I wrote down. Like I said, it's a little bit outdated. I might have talked about something that's not in here. But yeah, if you want to just pause and read that or whatever, you're welcome to. But yeah, it needs a lot of changes. Some of them big, but most of them small. Just kind of better flows, some skills getting a little bit faster to, stick with the theme of the class, 'cause especially if you're doing, uh, combo and, you're doing all these fast skills. And then you go to E and it just feels so slow, and Q feels so slow, and SF feels so slow. It's just, I don't know. These three skills or actually these four, a torrent, finale, final, whatever, a crush, and retreat here, they all feel slow. Uh, in comparison to the rest of the kit. But yeah, so she needs a lot. I was hoping to see more changes than what we got, especially not the pseudo nerf to Rhapsody here. Um, yeah, I don't know. Um, the only other minor things I would mention was that a lot of her damage relies on this buff, this crit rate buff here, especially for something like Shift F in its flow, which only have 30% crit rate, or twirling, or other twirl. Well, this one not so much, but Foxfire Stroke, Claw, Fan Kick, all these combo tools here, and Shift F rely on it a lot. Um, I would almost suggest we make this a usable CC attempt. Again, it can still be unprotected for sure. Just like I said, make it a little bit longer and put that old cancel back on. Put the crit rate buff on forward R&B instead. That way there's a little more reason to use that. Um, and this can be more of a CC tool rather than pick and choose. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Overall, I think the idea behind the class is good. Um, but honestly just feels unfinished. Um, especially when you look at skills like Twirling Fox Flare here, they have an air attack and air smash on it, but it's not impossible to get those, but it's very, very difficult. And then this has air attack And even if you get the air smash, it's still too slow to get the air attack on this skill. So it's really really weird. Um, this skill here. And then this one still has the air attack on attack 2. Back when on labs, it used to float on attack 2 with the core, but now it floats on attack 1. So the air attack on attack 2 is literally pointless, and it makes that attack 2 literally hit like a wet noodle because you get no modifier. It doesn't have down attack on attack 2. And it's the lowest number out of the 3 hits. So there's just there's a lot kind of just wrong with that skill. They should just make it full down attack and maybe full air attack for, why not? It's not like it's going to break anything. But yeah, so it's just unfinished. Um, I guess I just really hope that they finish it, please. Um, the if they don't add everything, I would suggest the biggest changes would be like improving the movement flows, like so they feel a little bit faster, move a little bit faster. Making this forward guard no float, making this SA. Those are like the biggest changes I think it needs, um, in my opinion at least. But yeah, that's pretty much it. I know this is a longer video. I know I've been gone for a while. I've tried to record several videos in the past, but I wasn't happy with them. Uh, and to be honest, there wasn't a whole lot I even cared to talk about. I know there were some Kuno changes that I wanted to talk about. I just don't care about the class as much as I used to, just because Suck's kind of dead at this point to me, and I don't see them ever changing it. I'm still a Drac main right now. This is my tag. I just kind of grind on it, have some fun because I like the feel of the class a lot of the time. But yeah, so that's pretty much it. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys at some point when they do something interesting. Peace out.